So this meeting is now being recorded. So what I'm going to start with is just a little bit of a where this conversation is coming from today. So in November of last year, I engaged a coach to help me with figuring out what was happening with direct outreach, particularly around social media. Now, I've been watching a lot of stuff going on in terms of people saying marketing has changed and you've got to be on social and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And then I was hearing of a lot of people talking about, yeah, I've got 45,000 followers and I'm getting all kinds of opportunities on the different social platforms. And I thought, okay, well, I knew that referral partners were still working. I knew client referrals were still working, but I thought maybe I'm missing something. So I hired a coach and went all in on a strategy that was direct outreach on LinkedIn. And I got to tell you, I've met some amazing people. And there are actually a few of you on the call today, and some were on the call earlier today as well, that I connected with via that outreach. But what I learned through this experience, I had 1,000 new connections that I was able to gather. And then I've had on average over 150 one-to-one conversations. And then from those conversations, I have ended up with three amazing new clients. But there's a lot that's still in the pipeline and they're still building. There's a relationship that's happening. And I know that this is going to be a very successful strategy for me in the long term. But when I stepped back and looked at my business about a month ago, I did an analysis of where all of my leads came from, all of my connections, all the relationships, and then I compared what I got from the LinkedIn outreach to what I achieved with referral partnerships and client referrals. And I'm sure you can guess where about 95% of my business came from. So I'm doubling down on referral partnerships. And today I'm going to talk to you about why. And I'm also going to talk to you about what I have learned through my own experiments in marketing over the past 6 months to a year. Because there's been a lot that I have picked up on. So the first thing that I want to really share with you is the fact that things are really different now in terms of marketing. We've had a lot of a new normal that we've had to adapt to since the pandemic. So just to kind of give an illustration of this, let me have a show of hands of how many of you in the past, let's go back 30 days, have made a decision of a purchase you were going to make, whether it was a small purchase of maybe an electronic device or a maybe a new restaurant even that you wanted to try out. My question for you is this: how many of you went and reviewed information or the reviews online before you made a decision of where you were going? Several? Okay, yeah. So, that's kind of one thing that we have recognized is that we're just changing a lot of how we do our own buying, which sometimes means we need to keep up with how we're selling because they don't always line up. We don't always practice what we teach or practice what we expect within our own business. So, my objective for you today is you're going to walk out of here with an understanding of some things that you need to adjust in order to stay relevant. Because one thing I want you to understand is that today's buyer, there is not an ill intention on their part, I firmly believe, but they are overwhelmed. They have a lot coming at them. They have too few resources. They have conflicting priorities and a whole lot of people that they've gone to for advice in the past that maybe they're recognizing they've got a feet of clay and they need to reevaluate. So that trust and that cynical buyer is kind of translating in a lot of different areas. And what this means is that here's another opportunity for you to raise your hand. So, how many of you have had buyers that were moving forward, they were engaging, and then they vanished and it's been radio silence? Or how many of you had clients that everything was going great until it wasn't? They've lost funding, they've had a shift in priority, there's been a change in leadership. Has anybody dealt with that? Okay. So you're getting a sense. This is what we see as evidence of these shifts. And now what we need to figure out is what are we going to do about it? Because at the end of the day, we know that we need a full pipeline and we need opportunities coming our way. And I already gave you the spoiler alert of the result of my own social media experimentation, where many thousands of dollars and a whole lot of outreach later, here we sit with an understanding that referrals are still where it's at. And they still lead to incredible opportunities as a part of your comprehensive marketing effort for professional services. So, what we have to think about as we look at this is we've got to acknowledge that some of the biggest shifts that we're seeing that are taking place, and maybe you're experiencing this, we've gone to people and probably asked for a little bit of advice and guidance about, okay, what works now in terms of finding business? And I don't know about you, there's a lot of these folks that I've talked to that they'll share, well, this was great because it ended up getting me in front of this many people, or I got this many impressions, or I booked this many meetings. And then when you start to boil everything down, you discover that there is a lot of measurement by vanity metrics rather than meaningful data of dollars in the door. And what I'm talking to you about today is all about dollars in the door. So let me give you a really quick illustration of how this happened for a fractional executive that I met with. And he just joined a group not too awful long ago. It's probably been, well, it's been about a year. And the advice that they gave him when he first got started is that he needed to have 200 meetings within 6 months. And they said, you talk to that many people with your background, somebody's going to hire you. Well, he went at it. And that was exactly the path that he was going down. And I got a hold of him when he was at meeting about 175. And I asked him if he was tired yet. And he was like, I'm exhausted. And I kind of feel like I burned up my network. And it's interesting because I think a lot of, if we follow a lot of the advice and guidance that worked for people 20 years ago, and I mean, I was there, it worked for me 20 years ago. But what worked for me 20 years ago is not working today. And what is working today didn't exist 20 years ago. So there have been so many fundamental shifts that sometimes I almost wonder if we're a little bit left behind with trying to keep up, just like the advice that my client had received. So, what you have to think about, and this is one of the fundamental shifts that's taken place, and it's the difference between distant versus close networks. And in 2020, there was a study done by Harvard Business Review that was basically talking about how people were securing opportunities for when they were looking for jobs. And it remains that 90% of business roles are landed via a networking connection, via somebody opening the door. And that has always been the same. It's always been the case. But with that being said, it's who you network with that has shifted quite a bit. So it used to be that first tier of relationships, those that were your immediate friends, your family, those folks that were arm in arm with you day to day. Those were that was your close network. And those were the people that they had your back and they were opening doors for you and it was incredible. But then what we've discovered that shifted since then is now it's like those close networks are burned out on us on a lot of stuff. And I think it's because maybe we almost spent too much time together for during that pandemic and we missed out. Yes, Mark, we're all family. We missed out on some of the other more distant connections. And then those distant connections craved relationships and they craved connection. So we wanted to connect with people more. So we were these second and third tier relationships ended up being really powerful for us. So the second and third tier were people that you worked with in previous roles, or maybe it's someone you went to college with, or a friend that you haven't connected with. For me, I'll tell you what's been game changing. It's been the relationships that I formed like in 2018 and 2019 that have been just hanging out in my email list. Now they're resulting in some big things. And what's really interesting is what they're telling me about how they've been following what I'm doing and paying attention, and I have remained consistent. And they say that you're the best at what you do and you've stayed in that lane. You haven't gone here and gone there and tried this and tried that. And I thought that was pretty interesting insight for them to share with me. But, that's the biggest thing is it's the second and third tier relationships that are so powerful for us right now. So, what I want to really dive into is why is this happening now? What's the big shift? Because if you think of how relationships are moving, we've got your content and how you connect and engage online. It often starts a conversation that sometimes we struggle with. So it's where someone likes a post or engages in conversation with you or interacts with you online. And we may look at it and we may say, oh, that's kind of nice. And then we go on about our business, not recognizing that that is a signal of interest that says, hey, there may be something here for us to discuss and something to pursue. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to these connections and then engaging one to one and building relationships, which means creating emotional equity. Now, emotional equity, and I'm going to talk to you about that quite a bit today, is about forming deposits where we do things to be helpful to our network and our relationships, because all of that feeds this engine that's going to continue to feed you opportunities when the timing is right. And this builds incredible value that you were then able to bank and call on when you're needing things in your own business and in your own life, which is primarily in the area of goodwill. Because these connections are so important because of some other fundamental shifts that are taking place in our business today, which is, you go to physical events and we go and we network and we're looking to connect with people. And our problem that we're facing now is oftentimes the rooms that we have access to and that we end up in, it's like you're the only person in this giant stadium. I mean, there may be other people there, but they're probably not the people that you really need to be in the room with. There are probably a lot of people in there that are, maybe in the same spot you are. Maybe they're trying to sell themselves and they don't have a big client base or they don't have a very engaged network or a good center of influence. So they're kind of in the same boat you are. And you're not necessarily in this position to be able to really help each other. So, what we want to think about is okay, so if the physical networking events aren't, working out the same way that they used to, and the influencers, here's the other challenge. A lot of the influencers that are busy and that do have great client relationships, well, they don't get out and network either because they don't have time for it. So, what we're left with then is a question of, all right, then how do we actually find these influencers and connect? So, this leads us to the opportunities that are available to us now, which is developing content and becoming that more visible online presence that can help build that trust and authority over your ideal audience. And then once you begin building this network and these relationships, then it's all about engaging one to one in conversation so that you can really explore where and how you're going to support each other. So we want to make sure as we do this also that there is a strategy behind what we're doing. Because unfortunately, too often our content is a bunch of random posts desperately seeking a strategy, meaning we post a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And that's the reason why I shared with you the example that my client gave, or my referral partner gave, of the fact that, we've just been watching you for 4 years because we've talked to too many other people that do a little bit of this and it's like they dabble in everything. Well, when you have scattered content without a clear focus, it looks like you're a dabbler. And it's hard to get behind somebody that's doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. People can't keep up because in a lot of cases, they may try to refer you today based on what their understanding was of what you did a month ago. And it doesn't take very many opportunities of them saying, oh, well, I guess they're not doing that now, before they say, all right, I'm going to wait until they figure out who they want to be when they grow up. And then they're going to come back. So it's important that you approach this in a way that is very, very strategic. And so as you think about creating these, this content and how you're going to build your personal and professional brand, remember it needs to be about connection. It needs to be about relationships and then creating emotional equity and building value. Because where all of this is fitting into today's prospecting effort is we are reaching an audience that fits into one of three different buckets. So we've got this pie chart that's divided up into who our buyers of today are. And we have 5% of our buyers that are problem aware and solution aware. That means they know they've got something going on, they've investigated and researched what the available options are, and they have phoned a friend and your name came up. So these folks are the 5% of the available market. The second category is your buyer that is problem aware but solution unaware. And now that means that they're probably, halfway through, maybe not even halfway through their own buyer journey as they're figuring stuff out. They are all over Google. They are all over online, and they are all over social media trying to figure out what others have done that have been in their similar position. So you should have received a workbook link for our conversation today. And when you get the link to this recording, I want you to have your workbook handy as I'm talking through these points, because it's important that you go back and really think about what are the terms and what information are your ideal buyers looking for and researching when they first start to encounter your topic. Because that should be driving a lot of your online efforts, is based on what your buyers are looking for when they're earlier in the buyer journey and they're starting to research what options do they have available. Particularly if you were doing something that they've never done before, such as offering a fractional sales leadership role or acting as a supply chain consultant to their organization. If they've never worked with somebody who does what you do before, they're going to be hitting the Googles to figure out what it's going to look like. And you need to understand what those search terms are and be easily found as the subject matter expert. Okay, and then the third category that we need to be aware of is the problem unaware and the solution unaware. And now that second category that we just talked about is about 30% of the market. So this category represents 65% of the available market. And this is who you get to when you act on those cold leads that come about from SEO, or you have cold outreach, that you are ending up with people in your funnel, much like me with my reach outs to 1,000 close personal friends, soon to be, on LinkedIn, that they don't know what their problem is and they don't know what their solution is and they haven't started looking yet. So they are in my relationship base for me to begin building emotional equity with them. But this is probably going to be a long sales cycle before this 65% of the market is now raising up and saying, all right, I'm ready, pick me. I'd like to talk to you and learn a bit more. And now the problem is we end up spending our time chasing 65% of the market that hasn't even started down this buyer journey. And so you end up with all of these people that are in your pipeline, and they may, you may make them aware that they have a problem, but if it's not their biggest problem, then you've got to wait until it percolates up. And now all of a sudden, you've got a pipeline of a lot of stale opportunities that the timing's just not quite right. And now we're trying to follow up with a whole lot of people with only limited resources. So that's the biggest reason why I want you really paying attention to these three primary categories. That first category that we talked about, that 5%, these buyers are the ones that are reaching out. More than 90% of buyers reach out to colleagues and peers and other professionals to find out, hey, when you dealt with this, what did you do? So they're online. They're looking for reviews. They're asking their professional and personal network. They're looking for referrals. This category right here represents your shortest trip to the bank in terms of a sales cycle. And then this category right here also represents the opportunities that can be accessed via referral partners. And that's what I really want you aware of, is we want to have a blend in our pipeline that we're pursuing, but we spend our time focusing on the relationships that serve up immediate opportunities. And then we create our content assets. And that strategy is about that secondary tier where other people are selling on our behalf until they get to this point right here. So now, how do you do that? If you've got all these people that are online and they're researching and they're educating themselves, they're probably going to find you via social media. They're going to find you via email marketing, or, during potentially some of that outreach effort that you're having. Or, they may be in that quadrant 3 where they're in pain, but they haven't recognized it yet. Other things are a bigger priority. And unfortunately, if you have a shotgun approach, you end up spending all of your effort and resources in that third category, chasing this broad audience that doesn't ever really get you anywhere. And then we just get worn out. So, this is another reason why it's very powerful when you think about different tools that are available now that we didn't have available 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You can have a marketing effort that creates awareness in this available market that doesn't take up a lot of time, and you can serve them via automation. And then if you have a lead scoring function within your automation, when you get prospects that are very engaged and interested and exhibiting the triggers that say, pick me, pick me, pick me, I'm ready to talk, then they are flagged and they tell you, hey, you need to pay attention because this person needs something from you right now. And then that can trigger and tell you when to open a door. We're going to get to this. We're going to talk about that in that third section of our conversation today. I just want to make sure that you understand that all of these three pieces need to fit together. Because in today's world, what happens is we have this, we've got this mix of physical versus digital. So with the physical side of it, This is where potentially we've met people from networking events in the past, and this is how we used to get business, pre 2020. You would attend a lot of networking events, you'd take your prospects to lunch, you'd go to conferences, there was a whole lot of shaking hands, there were potentially office visits or drop-bys, you may have done live pitches. There was just a lot that happened that you could physically show up and be in a room and open a door, and eventually people would buy from you because you continued to show up, and they knew they began to build that relationship of trust. They met you, they vetted you, and then they decided that it was time to trust you. Well, now it's like there's this digital presence that comes first, where prospects are going to go check you out online before they engage with you. And when they check you out, they're going to read your posts, they're going to watch your webinars, they're going to see how you interact, and they're going to determine if they actually want to engage and have a conversation with you. And in many cases, they may form an opinion of you before you ever even open your mouth or before they ever have the chance to engage with you. So that's why it's so important to understand these shifts that have taken place, because you may have the door that's opened from a physical interaction, IRL, in real life, that then digital supports their opinion of you. Or maybe they find you online and they build a favorable impression based on your content that they then want to expand as they get to know you one to one. So, okay. So it's important that you really think about both sides of your marketing and your sales effort. So you need to have the physical interactions and the real conversations, the personal touches. You need to attend the events that are made up of the people that you need to get in front of or build relationships with. But then you also need to make sure that your digital presence supports the right and makes someone understand the value in actually connecting with you. So what you want to think about with this is the evolution of how you are going to engage with your target audience. And now, in the old days, when I first started doing consulting and training, I went through the stages that you see outlined here on the screen, where I did cold calling. I'd call on leads that were purchased. I hung out at any networking event or breakfast club that I could get into. And then I looked for every chance I could find in order to begin doing the free talks. And then I began building blogs and doing presentations. And by that time, I had some clients and I could really build on that social proof and those client referrals. And then people started to look up and recognize, hey, this is cool. You're doing some good work here. And then we got to thought leadership, where it's okay, I'm an influencer now. But how do you get here and not take 20 years in order to do it? Because the thing is we can skip a lot of these stages now, knowing that there is a framework, there is a path, and there is a system to follow that moves you quickly up for you to become that influencer and thought leader. Because it's really important for you to know that during this entire process, you've got customers that are challenged with a lot of information coming at them. They're having a lot of problems and they don't know which one to focus on first. So, in a lot of cases, the one that is making the most noise and that they feel a sense of being able to do something about it, that they're going to take advantage of. And the one that may be even bigger, but they're insecure about, they don't take action on. And there's a concept that I learned about in 2021 that was pivotal for how I viewed the entire buyer journey and where I had to fill gaps and create systems in order to support my buyers. Because we have this thought in our minds about if we just give people enough information, it'll eventually shove them over the edge. And unfortunately, there is an invisible bridge that is in your ideal buyer's mind. And that invisible bridge is every fear that they have about being able to implement whatever you give them, their own doubts or insecurities about their ability to take action, or perhaps it's limiting beliefs about what the possibilities are. These are all the things that are stopping them. And so when you hear someone like me talk about, well, you've got to reduce friction in the buyer journey, that is specifically what has to take place. The friction that's happening is not about you being a better salesperson or learning better techniques. It's about you being more empathetic to your buyer and helping systematically remove every obstacle that is stopping them from taking action. And those obstacles probably exist in their mind. And so, what I want you to think about right now, this is where you grab your workbook, because I'm going to talk to you about some different ideas that can really help you in terms of understanding just what content is supposed to do for you. Because if you're reducing the friction, what we want to do is offer content assets that are going to be interactive and engage that buyer in overcoming some of that head trash that's stopping them from taking action. So, this is where you have worksheets, you've got templates, you've got guides, you've got checklists, you've got frameworks. You have information that demonstrates that you've been down this path before many times and that you are the person that has the opportunity or the way that is going to work for them. And so, what I want you to be thinking about is there's a lot that's being demonstrated to you right now based on business that you're not winning. So when somebody is ghosting you or you've got deals that don't close, in a lot of cases, we may think, well, they bought from the competition. Well, in many cases, you may go back to people that you talked to 6 months ago and discover that they haven't done anything. And those relationships offer great insight into what you need to be doing now to support those buyers and future buyers in overcoming those obstacles and crossing that invisible bridge. So, okay. So what I'd like for you to be thinking through is just let's think about a few ideas that may happen for you to come up with those quick win concepts. So let's take just a minute. So, what are some of the reasons why you feel like people may not have been taking advantage of whatever your irresistible offer is? Why do you feel like people aren't moving forward? So, Lucas, can you watch my chat for me?
30.
Okay, let's
We got
take just a
20
second.
questions for now.
Okay, competing priorities. All right, that makes sense. All right, Shelly. So, okay, Shelly, give me an idea of what you do. I've met you before, but refresh my memory and also fill the rest of us in. And we can unmute you, can't we? Let me see if I can find you. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm unmuting you.
Here we go. Yeah. I'm waiting. I'm at a doctor's office waiting to see a doctor, so that's why I'm on my phone. But anyway, I help sales leaders create a customized coaching plan to help take their sales teams to the next level, and we use a custom or a common language that helps do that. And
Okay.
it's a year long process. But the sales cycle for this is long because there's so many competing priorities. Or, for example, I was working with a customer, had a great meeting. The VP of sales left. Then they had a reorg change. And it's like, okay, starting over again, you know?
Okay. So, knowing this, how do you help them understand which priorities are truly pressing versus just irritants?
Well, kind of based on what they're seeing, if they're having a lot of turnover, or their salespeople aren't producing like they need to
Okay.
because they're just, basically showing up and not adding value.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, what I would do if you thought about the people that you really, really wanted. That's the thing is sometimes you talk to people, especially in training and development, that talk a good game.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's almost like one of these ghost interviews that we're brought in because they want to give the impression that they're investing in their people, but yet they're really not. Because you and I
Hmm.
both know that it all takes their willingness to actually invest the effort necessary, and they have to look in the mirror for their own place in this in order to take action. And sometimes that becomes really challenging.
Correct.
So if you think about some of these key challenges, that's one of the first things that I love to do is think about what are the personal mindset shifts or understanding that the leaders need to be aware of and willing to do in order for me to even engage and do the work. And
Hmm.
before I start creating anything, that's where I'm kind of putting these mini tests in place.
Right.
So, what can you, I mean, that's where I would be thinking about content and where it would fit into what you're doing. The more you can engage and get people to what I talk about as first dollar, the more likely they are to take the next step with you.
Hmm.
So, once somebody spends money, they're 5 times more likely to spend money again than a new
Right.
buyer.
Right. Right. And existing buyers continually do business, but it's the new ones that you're trying to get in the pipeline that are just like pulling teeth,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
so think about what one thing could you offer that would be a way to get them to first dollar. So think
Hmm.
about, what Mark and I have done, like with our freeway to fractional course offering, is we put together a $37 course that basically is the job description of fractional.
Mm.
And it helps people kick the tires on whether or not they are ready to make change.
Hmm. Right.
And I mean, we've converted 75% of the people that have gone through that $37 experience.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a thing. So it doesn't have to be a big amount, but anything that makes somebody, get their credit card out and do the work. That's the thing that's important is the 75% are the people that actually did the work, came out on the other side and said, yeah, this is something that I really I see myself doing this.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that's the most powerful key is people have to see themselves in your solution. And then the flip
Right.
side of it is don't do anything for free. Because every time, everybody's like, well, I spent hours and hours coaching them for free. Well, you train them to buy to not buy from you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I have a book that I usually give a prospect to have them read and then follow back up with them. And I usually give that to them for free. You think that I should be charging them for that?
So, how could you take the book and turn it into like a mini training or something that you could charge
Mm-hmm.
for?
Mm. Yeah, I gotta think about that.
Yeah, and Chat GPT is your friend. I mean, you can even upload your book and tell Chat GPT to turn it into a mini training.
Right. Right.
It is very
Uh,
cool. And the other thing that's way cool
that's great.
about it is then that's actually going to get you leapfrogged ahead into where search is going. So SEO is going to very quickly become found on Chat GPT.
Mm.
So, that would
Mm-hmm.
actually get you a ground, everybody's like, well, I don't want to give my IP away. Okay, well, there's some of this that it's probably not. I mean, if I put my content out there, it's funny. I compare it to what Chat GPT comes back with, and
Uh-huh.
I'm this much different. But it's kind of like, I've got an amazing brownie recipe that my brownies are way better than you get out of the box because of this much of a difference in the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice.
So that's what you want to think about with your content is how do you construct something? The other thing is you can come up with ideas like plug your blog posts in, articles, books, and then ask Chat GPT to give you ideas about what could you create from it.
Mm. Great ideas. Thank you.
So that's a really cool place to get started. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions from anybody else? Is this making sense? Give me a show of hands. Let me know if you're still with me on this. because I want to make sure. I know it's late in the afternoon and some people may be thinking it's happy hour somewhere. Okay, let's make sure. Okay, I think I've got, all right. Some of you are still with me. Some of you may have already headed over to happy hour. We'll see. Those of you that are still with me, here we go again. Okay, because now I want to talk about partnerships. Because we talked
Hi.
about,
Good.
was that?
How are you? Good.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
only
now we
one
need
of
to
the few
mute.
orchids that have actually gone to bloom after I knocked the blooms
Okay.
off. So I was admiring that. And I was
Lucas,
like,
can
I
you do
never
me
would
a
have
favor
guessed.
and
I've
mute?
never got one to bloom for
I don't know.
me.
You may
That
not
I
would
be
be
able
don't have
to.
personal. My house
permission to
blooms,
do
so I
that.
don't know. It's really hard. I
Okay,
don't know
here
if
we
turning it
go.
around if I'm just lucky.
Hang tight. Okay, I think we got it. All right, so if you haven't muted yourself, do me a favor and do a quick mute so that we don't have background noise that's creeping in. Okay, so now let's talk partnerships. So we talked about the first element of your prospecting strategy, which is your content and building that personal and professional brand. And what is really important, the reason why at the core of it that we really want to do that is because when somebody talks about you and they hit the Googles and they want to check you out, you need to be findable. Because if there's a disconnect because what someone has shared about you and what people see about you, that is going to break trust. And we have already a very cynical buyer market that's struggling to think about just how are we going to engage. So what you want to think about is, okay, so we want to build that trust and we want to build that credibility and understanding so that when people refer us, we get business. We're able to make changes. We're able to create an impact. So let's talk about where our best referrals come from. And if you're like me, I would imagine that probably your clients give you the absolute best introductions. Everybody with me? Do your clients give the best referrals? Is that what you're finding? Give me a wave. Okay, I'm hearing it. Yep. Okay. All right. Clients give the best referrals. Do you know why that is? Let's think about it. Why do clients give you the absolute best introductions? What is it that a client can share or relate about you and about how you work? What can the clients speak to in terms of the results? And how concrete is their evidence that lends itself to somebody saying, all right, I can get behind that? This is the reason why those client introductions become so incredibly powerful. And in a lot of cases, we have built an emotional equity deposit within that client relationship because of doing great work that was probably so far over and above what they ask you to do that they want to pay you back in some way, shape, or form. And their easiest way of doing that is via referrals. So you've got the credibility, you've got the trust, you've got that emotional equity investment that has that feeling of reciprocity. All of those things are incredibly powerful when you think about building influence and trust. Because really, what it's all about is that investment of influence that we're asking someone to make. Now, with our clients, that investment is made and they're pretty excited about working with us and telling others about their direct experience. That's like the ultimate investment of influence. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk to you and give you some ideas about the different levels of influence that are invested. And then we're going to talk about at what level is investment being made in you of influence. And sometimes the harder question is what investment are you making in your referral partners? Because at the end of the day, people model what they or people follow the path that is modeled for them. So as I'm talking through this, okay, so a 10% investment of influence is if you're chatting with somebody and they say, so you work with a lot of attorneys. Have you ever considered working with accountants? Because I bet that they're so similar in type because your superpower is helping introverts wrap their arms around this whole idea of selling and be very good at it. I bet accountants would be a great direction for you to go. That is a 10% investment of influence. Now, 20% is if they say, and I heard about this firm that was talking about wanting to incorporate some more organic business development. I bet they'd be a good one for you to go after. That's 20%. 30% is if they say, I know that so and so is the decision maker over at that firm. And that would be probably a good starting point for you to have a conversation. We're at 30%. 40% is where they say, and you can use my name when you call on them. Okay. 50% is where they say, oh, wow, that firm would be really good for you. And I know the managing partner over there. Let me make a call and open the door. So, what would you like for me to share with them about what you can do within that firm? And so, if they are willing to make a call and hit the 5 key criteria that we call Spark, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that in a few minutes, where it actually relates a story of someone that looks a lot like that managing partner that I've been able to make some changes within their firm. Now, all of a sudden, they're lending their influence to the conversation. And if they say, hey, let me schedule a lunch and introduce you over lunch, or let's book a Zoom call because I know the firm well and I'm happy to direct the conversation into areas that you can provide value. 70% is if they actually make that call with you and they do direct it and highlight your area of expertise and speak to the results that they've seen you achieve within other firms that look like that accounting firm. Now we're at 70%. 80% is if they follow up after that conversation with the managing partner and with you and help uncover objections. 90% is if they help with, okay, so you had a challenge here. Let me introduce you to someone that she helped navigate that exact same situation. So they help you close the deal. And then at 100%, it's where they say, hey, Brendan, I've got one of my best clients. I've been doing marketing for him for years. They are now at a position where they can work with somebody just like you. I've qualified them. We've got an available budget that they're ready to invest. We've got people that are excited to participate in this. We need to get together and finalize the details. That's at 100%. So when I'm talking about an influence investment, those are the different levels that partnerships bring to the table for you and your business. So now is where you chime into chat and you tell me about what level of influence investment is being made in you. So let me know all the way from 10 to 100%. Where are you being introduced at? Let me see if I can follow in chat. I kind of feel like I should have that. Do, 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 do. There's the Jeopardy. Okay, so we've got Mark. Way to go, Mark. Mark's my poster child. Okay, you're getting there, Dan. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. What level are you being invested? What level of influence is being invested in you in making introductions? That's the big question. And sometimes it's a hard question when you think about it. Thanks, Mark. Okay. I want you to keep thinking about this because this is one of the key, I think, breakthroughs. So, your invisible bridge that you've got to cross is to understand the importance of influence in your own prospecting efforts and understand that there are possibilities where you can have a free sales team working on your behalf. But that free sales team It doesn't happen overnight. It's not an auto magically thing. Just because you have a coffee meeting, someone's going to become a referral partner for you. Oh, mercy, I wish it did. But unfortunately, or maybe it's fortunately, because I think that if trust came easy, it's probably not the influence that you're going to need with a sophisticated buyer. So, building influence. If you think about the process of selling, you have a funnel that we follow. That at the very top of the funnel, it's where you bring in a lot of opportunities. And then once those opportunities are there, they're starting to get their arms wrapped around exactly what you would do for them, what it's going to cost them, where it fits in their priorities, what they're going to have to do to implement, and what do they have to give up or walk away from. And then as they answer all those questions, they're going to end up in the middle of the funnel where they start to make some, tough decisions about, okay, I'm going to have to, it's kind of like that whole weight plan of if I'm going to lose the 20 pounds I want to lose, it means that I have to give up eating the things that I love to eat and I have to start working out, which the gym is not my favorite place to be. That's the same way it is when you think about your business. So, understandably, you get opportunities that kind of move their way out, which brings the funnel down. Good news is we only have so many hours in the day and we only have so much capacity in order to serve our clients. So, this is not a bad process when you think about bringing in your clients. And then you get down to the bottom of the funnel, and that's where you're starting to really finalize the details, work out what the relationship is going to look like, and move forward. So, this is the process or the client experience that you create with your customers. Okay. Now, what I'm going to share with you is that building relationships with referral partners is a very similar process. And I told Steve I was going to explain this a little bit more. He made a comment about it, I remember, on LinkedIn. So if you think about building relationships with referral partners, as one of my clients explains it, you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. The thing is you may end up like my process. I'm not going to have you meet with 200 people, but in the course of a year, you may meet with 90 if you want to get to 8 to 10 really great partnerships. And understand the majority of my clients don't need 8 to 10. They need anywhere from 3 to 4 really great partners. So when you think about it, you're going to end up meeting with 10 people at the very top of that funnel. And then you're going to have a meeting. And then the first meeting, people are going to give you very clear indication when you follow the path that I lay out. They're going to give you a very clear indication of they either get it or they don't get it. And if they don't get it, then they move over into a marketing funnel and you drip on them with content because, even a blind squirrel will find a nut every now and again. So they can refer things your way, and that's fantastic. But your time is precious. You only have so many hours to invest in relationships, and they need to be the right ones. So then when you think about it, okay, we're going to filter out about half of these you're going to end up pushing off into the content funnel. And then you've got a few of them that, okay, everything's looking pretty good. I'm going to keep cultivating this relationship. And you keep working with them. And then you start to work into the details of what do they do and how do they do it and who do they serve and are they actively wanting to market? And you answer all these key questions and then you determine if it lines up with you. And then you're going to have more of them that kind of fall out. And then you get to the bottom where it's all right, we are marching in lockstep. We're at the same clients. We've got similar philosophies. Our processes and approaches align. We can offer value in a way that's going to enhance one another's client experience. It's all good. And then you're going to get down there to the bottom, and then that's where you finalize what your relationship is going to be, and you construct joint marketing efforts. Where basically, instead of me selling my stuff, I can sell your stuff as effectively as I can sell mine because you're my partner. And I understand that if I sell you, in many cases, you're going to do a better job of selling me when the time is right, and then I'm not following up on it. So That's what you need to think about. And it's a shift that takes place, but it takes about 90 days to onboard a relationship. And the thing that I teach in my course experience is what has to happen during the 7 meetings over a 90-day time period to take someone from being a networking contact to being a strategic partner that is your free salesperson. So that's how you view the relationship evolution and how things are just adjusted. But they do align between selling or bringing on a new client and bringing on a new partner. Because, I mean, if you think about it, money kind of comes easy. I mean, you can make more of it. So if you make a bad mistake and it doesn't turn out the way you want, well, it's okay. So it was only money. But if you make a mistake with your influence and reputation, that stings and it doesn't come back quickly. So I want you to be really aware of that as you think about how this process works. Because in some cases, asking someone to make that investment of trust in you may be even a harder sales cycle than asking someone to spend money with you. So I want you just thinking about the path when you have your next networking coffee of what you are actually asking someone to do. Okay, because now what you want to think about as you wrap your arms around referral partnerships, your content and all of your marketing effort, if you want to empower your referral partners to do lead generation on your behalf, you need to basically provide them with sales tools so that they can make people aware of you, your capabilities, and help people wrap their arms around just what would you do and how would you do it. So that means that your content needs to be situational. So, for instance, right now, you need to be very in tune to what's happening in our world. And you need to be posting on trending topics and the points of conversation that are happening around tariffs and supply chain and the restructure of funding that's available to a lot of organizations now that they're figuring out what are they going to do without federal government dollars in. So I mean, you need to understand what's happening and position information that makes it super easy for someone to grab one of your blogs and share it with their best client that may have been talking about that exact challenge. It also needs to be strategic. So you need to make it so easy for somebody to say, okay, that's kind of a big topic, and we were just talking about that. Or it may help enhance their position that they have, that they've been trying to get their customer to kind of move forward on some big decisions. Well, your content can be a tool to help them advance their process, especially if you're in the life cycle of how they're going to serve that client. The other thing that you have to make evident is that there is a community behind what you do, because that's the biggest thing now. People are more in tune with the community that you create. In other words, they want to know, are they going to like hanging out with your other customers? Are they going to like engaging in that community? People are just a lot more sensitive to some of these big questions right now. So, okay, I got to make sure that I'm staying on track with everything because oh my goodness, we're covering a lot of ground. Are y'all with me so far? I want to make sure. Are you still okay? I've still got you. Okay. So, what you need to think about when you're looking at all of this information, people want to know that you've helped other people that look just like them. So, in a lot of cases, before they get to these final stages of the buyer journey, they are going to be asking the key questions of, do you work with people that look like me? And that means that you do need to be very clear about who your ideal buyers are and make sure that you are talking to one person and only one person with everything that you're sharing. Because the error that we make often is we try to create this experience that is for everyone. And when you try to serve everyone, you are going to serve no one because people are not going to align with you because they feel like you just don't get them. So it's important for you to really be thinking about your process, your approach, and your relationships, all going to that one common, incredible prospect that's your ideal customer. That's who we want to go after. Okay. All right. So let me see if I've got, are y'all still with me on this? Any questions at this point? Because now we're going to shift gears into the third, which is implementation. Because we've talked about content, we've talked about partnerships, and now we need to talk about making it all happen. Because, there's only so many hours in the day. So, any questions? Lucas, are you hearing anything?
No, we don't have anything.
No questions about partnerships? No questions about content? Oh my goodness. Maybe we should give caffeine away. We should have had Starbucks delivered to everybody before. That would have been a good idea. Y'all still with? Give me a wave. Let me know. Okay, Steve Thomas is taking notes. Well, then, Steve, I'm coming back to you because I'm going to want to know what you're taking notes about when we get to the end. Okay. I have a story to tell you. In Great by Choice, Jim Collins tells the story of two explorers, Raold Amundsen and Robert Falcon Scott. They led rival expeditions to the South Pole in 1911. Both men faced similar conditions, terrain, weather, and challenges. However, their outcomes were drastically different. Amundsen and his team succeeded and returned safely, while Scott and his entire team perished. Amundsen adopted a disciplined approach. Regardless of weather or circumstances, his team marched 20 miles a day, no more and no less. Even on good weather days, they didn't overextend themselves, and on bad days, they still got up and pushed to hit their 20-mile goal. The consistent progress left them fresh, focused, and adaptable. Now, Scott, on the other hand, lacked that discipline. His team would rest on bad weather days and push themselves to exhaustion on good days. The inconsistency drained morale and physical stamina. When conditions worsened near the end of their journey, they couldn't recover and they died 11 miles from the supply depot. Now, our lessons from this, now nobody's going to die from what we're talking about, but it is a clear illustration of how disciplined and sustained performance, regardless of external conditions, wins over reactive spurts of effort. So in business and life, setting a consistent, achievable march builds resilience and long-term success, especially in unpredictable or turbulent environments like we're all living in right now. Holy cow. So sporadic efforts don't work when you think about prospecting. So what I want you to think about with your prospecting is how can you create a 20-mile march in what you're doing? And how do you make sure that in just a few minutes a day that you have consistent activity each and every single day? So that's what I want you to think about. So I want you to think about it from the perspective of, okay, let's take 15 minutes. Let's say that we're going to have 15 minutes a day and what needs to happen within that amount of time. So what I like to encourage is that you think about it like you're going to have a ritual that takes place every day, where in the morning, you're going to do LinkedIn posts and you're going to have conversations within your pod of referral partners. Now, pods are really pretty cool online, I'll tell you, because the thing about social media right now and the way technology is working is LinkedIn has this belief that if you have people interacting with your content within 30 minutes of you making that post, that it's probably pretty good content. So it's important that you have people ready, willing, and able to jump in on your posts and have conversations in order to get things moving forward in the feed. The other thing is LinkedIn is paying attention to whether or not people are really posting or they're scheduling posts. And you get more traction to your profile and more traction on your posts when you are active and engaged. So that means they're actually monitoring you and your activity. So within that first 30 minutes of posting, it's important that you go out and engage with other people's content. So what you're doing in your pod is by asking other people to contribute on your content, you going and contributing on theirs is actually helping your content as well. So this is something that you're doing to help them, but it's also going to be helping you as well. And it's important that you actually give meaningful comments that are more than 10 words. Okay. So there's like this, I don't know if it's a mathematics, it's counting characters, but if you just say great concept, great post, you may as well not have even posted. So I encourage you to actually give a thoughtful response, continue the conversation. And LinkedIn values this so much right now that they give you the impression count on your comments. So just like you see how many impressions happen when people are looking at your posts online on your own profile, they're also monitoring this on your comments made on others because they really want you doing that. So the other thing that I encourage you to do is engage with your referral partners and their profiles and their conversations and in their communities. The other thing that happens is that makes you very visible with their client base and their followers as well. It's an easy way to, again, lead to that 8 to 22 interactions, because with referral partners, the thing that is so cool about them, the 8 to 22 interactions happens, only it happens with them doing the work on your behalf instead of you having to drip on the prospects and build that relationship. But you have to give them that content and that interaction and that engagement, because every time you do and you make a positive impression, that was a touch to get you closer to those 22 touches that may be needed. So I also encourage you to think about sharing other profiles with them and making connections to people that you're networking with that could also be beneficial to them. So your value first outreach message needs to happen where you give them insight, guidance, or connections. And this is a really good spot right here. Lucas, would you go ahead and share our bonus offer that we had for people joining us today live?
Sure.
Okay, it's going to go into the comments, and it's only available if you were here on the call today. So if you're listening to this recording and you didn't come to the call today, I'm sorry. It's for the folks who came and showed up and participated in our great conversation. But in that, you will find a guide that teaches you how to lead with this value first, and it gives you some great insight on how to have the conversations with potential either buyers or referral partners that, again, it's just this building this emotional equity. So we have the messaging template kit that it's a Google Doc, so you can go grab it, download it, bring it over, and it is a guide for how you're going to use AI. So we talk about Chat GPT, although I'm a big fan of Anthropic and Claude also for doing this. So make sure you leverage the tools that we've talked about there, because they are very, very, very powerful. Okay, so we have talked about a lot of different things today. So understand that if you think about a comprehensive prospecting effort, we have three primary elements. We have our content that makes sure that when people find us, it aligns and builds that personal and professional brand that attracts your ideal buyer. The second category that's going to amplify this is your partnerships. They're that top of funnel lead generation that is going to bring you people that are in the final stages of the buyer journey that are excited to work with you. Content's focusing on the 35%. Referral partners are on that 5%. And then enablement and all of the different tools that are available pull all of this together to allow you to remain cohesive and strategic and not have to invest so much time, effort, and energy running around like crazy trying to do all the things. Because really, when it's all said and done, it's not about doing everything, it's about doing a few things incredibly well that positions you as that authority and subject matter expert to the people that you want to build the relationships with. Okay, we have covered so much ground. All right. I know y'all probably have questions now. At least I hope you do. I do want to also extend an invitation to you. If you like what we have talked about today, and you're sitting here thinking, okay, this is cool, but what would it look like for me? How would I incorporate this in my business? I have a course called Productive Prospecting that lays out the framework and the step by step by step path in order for you to build this effort within your own business. Plus, you get access to an incredible community of amazing referral partners. Now, this community is very, very cool, and we keep it that way. So, I would love for you, if you have interest in learning more about what the experience would be like on the other side in productive prospecting, I'd love for you to let me know. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, chat with you about the details of it, and help you discover exactly what referral partnerships could offer you in your business. Would love to have you as a part of it. Okay, so that's my pitch right there. All right, now I want to hear about what you're going to take out of today based on what we've learned. And Steve, you promised me you were taking notes. So I'm going to start with you.
All right, you're picking on me, but I will.
Come on.
I think the big thing for me was the visual on the invisible bridge and reducing friction, because I have never thought about it that way. About somebody thinking about what the obstacles are. So doing things to remove those frictions that a prospect would hear or see,
Perfect.
and providing assets for them like worksheets and templates and things to get them over the hump to realize that this is something they need to move forward with.
Yes. Exciting. All right. And I can't wait to see what you come up with. So when you dive into the workbook and the exercises today, shoot over what your work product is because I want to see it.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay. All right. Who else has something that they're taking out of today? I want to hear from a couple others. Wendy, what about you? You've been awfully quiet. I've asked you to unmute. Okay, and we've got, what are you taking out of today? Oh, I got people running away. TL, where'd you go? Okay. All right. Well, here's what I will ask. I would like for you to look at the workbook, look at the content, and really think about what you are going to incorporate. Okay. So, all right. So the template is in the chat. So, Steve, if you'll scroll up in the chat, there is a Google Drive link that Lucas posted.
All right, I don't see it. That's why I was asking.
Okay. Let
Right.
me.
I think you only gave me permission to chat with you. So that's why people are not seeing it.
I thought people could chat with everybody.
I mean, they can, but I think that I only can.
Oh.
You're
Yeah,
the
you
only one
said
that
only
can
hosts and
message.
panelists. That's what it is. Can you repost or do you want me to do that, Lucas?
Can I do what? Sorry.
Can you repost it to everyone?
Yes, but it seems that I still only can send messages to you, not to the whole chat.
Okay, so let me try. All right, so I'm posting it. Oh, Mark doesn't see the chats either. All right, hang tight. Let me, All right, this is just weird.
I see the chat messages. I just don't see the document.
Oh, let me maybe come over here and try it from this side. Kathy, did you snag it?
I just added it.
Ah,
Yeah, I see it
Kathy,
now.
this is why I love Kathy on my calls. Way to get it done. Yes, Dan, we have a lot of content that's going to get blown out. Can't wait. You had a good start and then you ended up running away and leaving the country.
Yeah, I left the country for a couple weeks. Sorry about that.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so Kathy, the template pack is the bonus offer. So it's the guide on constructing your follow-up messages.
What I put in there was the
The
great
workbook.
prospect reset. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no, that's the workbook. Okay, hang
Yeah,
tight.
no, the bonus offer I don't have.
Okay, hang tight. Let me grab that. I can do it. Maybe. Hang on. Hang on. Give me a minute. I'll figure it out. Okay. Hosts and panelists. Aha. Everyone. All right, here we go. You should see it. Google Doc.
We got it.
Yay! Okay, I love it when things work the way that they're actually supposed to work. Okay. All right. I want to give everybody a huge thank you for spending time with me today. It has been, I know, a big investment. I know that many of you have a lot on your plate, and taking time in order to come and spend time with us is a big ask. And I am so grateful for what you took out of it. And I cannot wait to see you put it to work in your own business. And I would be honored to have a conversation with you about what it would be like within the community of productive prospecting. So I'm going to leave you with one thought. You can get anything you want in the world as long as you help enough other people get what they want. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day, and I wish you all very good selling. Take care. Bye now.
Bye, Brendan.